Hi and welcome back to the channel, and today we are graced with a 2002 Peugeot Partner van. So this little van's going to be 20 years old now and it's covered quite low mileage. It's only done about 115,000 miles, but it is looking a little bit neglected and a bit worse for wear. So today we're going to be giving it a quick 15-minute makeover and trying to tidy it up ready for resale. So a good place to start is going to be the engine bay, but we need to protect some of the electronics underneath here. So the first bit we're going to be careful is this throttle operated electronic sensor. We've then got the injectors, and on the right hand side we've got the vehicle's ECU, which is its brain. So what we're going to do is I've just covered up these with some microfiber cloths to make sure the jet wash doesn't directly hit them, and then we're going to use some all-purpose cleaner and a brush, and we're going to start scrubbing away all the year's worth of filth. On this particular vehicle, I didn't go too crazy jet washing the centre of the block, so being the engine. So you'll see in the after shots there is still a little bit of dirt there, but the truth is when they get to this age, you are concerned or would have a concern about how good some of the rubber seals around the electronics are going to be. So it's better to err on the side of caution and give this engine bay a good wash over and get it 80% better than what it was, rather than really blasting it too hard with the jet wash and causing some electrical issues. Once that's done, I'm going to use some Car Pro Pearl today. That's been diluted down 1 to 3, so that's a really good product. You can apply it on a wet engine bay and it'll leave a nice factory finish at the end of it once it dries off. So the lower part of this van, or the sill area, has this sort of undersealed textured effect to it, so I'm going to be agitating this with a soft Vicam brush just to make sure it really gets into that sort of mottled effect paint, and when I get the jet wash in there it really gets all that dirt and grime off. I'll use that same brush in a minute to do things like scrub the tyre on the vehicle or the wheel, and also one of the EZ brush range just to get inside the plastic wheel arch liners and give them a good agitation and sort of move the mud out there, especially around the lip of the wheel arch, because sometimes jet wash just can't reach, so if you get a brush in there and give it a good scrub, it helps loosen off all the grime. So one of the things I spotted on the white paintwork was lots of little sort of black spots or yellow tinge, and that's going to be iron fallout. So what we're going to use here is some fallout remover. This one's by Car Pro and it's lemon scented because this stuff can smell a little bit nasty otherwise. Now I'm going to leave that on the paintwork for about 10 to 15 minutes to make it work its magic. As we'll see, it's accelerated time here. It'll turn all the iron filings red and they'll start to sort of dissolve on the paintwork, and then it's just a simple case of going over the jet wash and just blasting all that off. So with the engine bay washed off, the door shut, and the wheel arches and the wheels, and the bodywork decontaminated, we can now go for the final wash. So the cab inside this van wasn't the worst I've seen. I'll leave a link at the top to a red van I did recently, which was way worse than this. It was just a case of getting a brush in there, agitating any dust off the dashboard, and then we'll go through the process of using all-purpose cleaner to wipe all the plastics down. One thing I was actually quite surprised with this van was you could just about make out the faded paintwork down the side of it where the lettering had once been from sign writing that it had been owned by a painter and decorator. Now usually when you get those kind of vehicles, all the door trims, the seats, absolutely everything is covered in white spots of paint where they've got in there with their overalls or they've got it on their hands and touched all the interior, and it's an absolute nightmare to get rid of. But there was a tiny little bit of what I would think probably sticker flex or like silicone sealant on one of the seats that I had to sort of just agitate and sort of very carefully get the edge of a screwdriver just to sort of loosen it off. But apart from that, there was hardly any paint transfer inside the cab, so I was really lucky with this one. I still really like these new Scuff It pads I've got from cleanandshiny.co.uk. Sort of no affiliatory link there, it's just something that they've got into stock and they're absolutely fantastic. For something like this little bit of fabric trim, on more modern cars you may sort of get a wet vac on there and extract the dirt out of it, but fabric was starting to come away from the door card and was quite fragile, so to be able to sort of manually clean that with that sort of scuff pad and just get that fabric cleaned up was really helpful in this instance. Another area it's really good for is things like this headlining. It's an area you don't want to get too wet in a car anyway, or a van, especially at this age, and they're just very good at, as we can see on screen, at agitating all these sort of areas and just loosening off the dirt without being too aggressive. So once the seats are done inside the vehicle, we need to start doing something to the outside of it. One of the first areas I'm going to tackle is this black mark on the back of the paintwork. Luckily this is just paint transfer, so at some point something's just rubbed up against the rear quarter. Bit of compound there with a slightly more aggressive polishing pad, and it's come straight out. I used that same polishing pad on the headlights. They weren't too discoloured, but they were just sort of going a little bit hazy across the top edge. So again, just run that over the headlight, give it a buff, and it'll come up really well. So I've gone around machine polished the whole van, but I'll highlight another area which was a little bit interesting. So the driver's side front wing had been painted at some point in its life. As we can see on camera, it's a little bit off colour. Now, I knew I wasn't going to be able to make this absolutely immaculate, but although I'd gone through the process of using iron fallout remover, clay bars, etc., the paintwork can still stay a little bit stained. So by going over with some cutting compound, which is obviously going to clean the surface of the paintwork, I knew it wasn't going to make the colour match perfect, but as we can see on camera, it definitely removes some of that yellow staining effect to it and makes it a little bit more uniform with the van. Also, it's one of those things that sometimes a front wing like that, under electric light, if you've had a vehicle that's had paintwork, it's a lot more critical, whereas if you take it outside in natural light, it doesn't look as bad. So in the after shots, it's still off colour, don't get me wrong, but it's not horrendous. As I've shown in previous videos, just something simple like having that rusty steel wheel, taking a bit of time to sand it down, repaint it satin black so it looks really nice again. We'll apply some tyre dressing. What I'll do then is use some of that CarPro Pearl which we used on the engine bay earlier to dress the plastic wheel arch liners. And then we'll finish that off by putting a brand new set of wheel trims on the van as well. Don't get me wrong, this vehicle only has a value probably, I guess, of around about £1,500 or less. So I've only got one day to tidy it up. We're on a strict budget, but by doing all these little things, it's a massive improvement. As I've mentioned before, cars or vans in this price bracket of £2,000 and below, people don't usually bother doing anything to them. So, you know, you see one advertised in the paper or on the internet, and they're going to look pretty much how they did in the beginning shots. So by taking a little bit of time and effort to tidy these up, it just gives these vehicles so much more of a better opportunity to sell first or quicker than those other vehicles advertised. And I left this little bit of additional footage in. This bumper dressing is very good, but even when they're sort of this weathered and a bit tired, you might have to go over twice and give them a second coat because that plastic can really sort of absorb the bumper dressing. Once that's done, I've got some white paint, gone around, done the door edges and things like that, touched in as best I can. I'll then clean the glass. That's going to be the final bit. We'll take the vehicle outside and do a few before and afters. So I'll leave you with some decent before and afters. It's pretty good turnaround for a day, and given the nature and the age of the vehicle. Got some good news. We've got a Volkswagen EOS coming to the channel soon. That's going to be quite involved, quite grubby. And I've also got a very high mileage sort of Ford Focus estate that's been used as a dog chariot, is the only way I can describe it. I think they've run around the back of it, the front of it, everywhere. I think they've almost lived in it. So it's going to be quite challenging and a lot of fun on the channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please think about doing so. I appreciate that, and I'll see you on the next one.